What's up, YouTube? It's Joe Catapaglia sitting on the couch, making some money, investing in fractional real estate online. Today, I know I spend a lot of time talking about, doing due diligence before we buy properties on Lofty or Mogul or, any of the sites that we buy on. But one of the things that I don't really talk about enough, I think, is the ongoing due diligence that we should be doing, right? Like once we own some of these properties, what should we be looking for as far as what do we need to look for each month to make sure that the property's operating the way that we expect it to? Today, I'm going to focus mostly on Lofty because it's where I think there's the greatest discrepancy between like some of the better properties, what they're providing us, and some of the worst. I have talked a little bit to some of the Mogul staff about providing some reports, on a monthly or quarterly basis. At the moment, there's nothing that we can actually log in and look at. Some of the things I'm gonna show you today that I'd want you to check on. We want to look at if there's a mortgage on the property, is that mortgage being paid every month? If there's insurance, is that property? I mean, there should be insurance, but is that paid each year? Are property taxes paid each year or quarterly, depending on where you are? It might be a little bit different. Um, what kind of rent roll or P&Ls are they giving us each month, that sort of thing. And so I'm going to go through, a property. I'm going to go through what I look at. So there's a couple of different things. And then, so in addition to that, you also just want to know like what else is going on with the property, right? Are there new updates? So one of the things you can do is, you can give yourself, these alerts, right? You can favorite them, and then if I actually don't know if you need to favorite them or not if you own them. But you'll automatically get emails from Lofty when there are, when certain things happen, when there's updates that are put out. But as far as I know, we're not getting any sort of notification when something new gets put into the Dropbox. And so that's what, again, I've talked about this site a few times, loftyassist.com. You can set up alerts for yourself for price changes. You can, okay, and let me see. So I have basically gone on here and marked several properties that I own. Unfortunately, they don't have all of the properties on Lofty. I owned some that have been delisted, and they were delisted before this tool was built, and so they don't show up anywhere on the tool that I can find. But because I have claimed these properties basically as ones that I've owned, I'm getting an email that gives me updates as whenever there are new documents or whatnot. If you're not doing that, if you're not using that, you can just look in the Dropbox every day, right? And so, like, let's say not every day. You can look in the Dropbox, once if you do it once a month, I think that's perfectly prudent. Someone like me, I do it quite a bit more often on properties that I might still be buying or selling tokens in. I'm pretty active on the site, and sometimes you'll see something get put in the Dropbox that'll alert you to some sort of change, right? Like maybe there's a new lease agreement, and you find out that the lease increased, but nobody had told us that was going to happen, and that's going to have an impact on the cash flow, and then that impacts the value. So those sorts of things, or maybe we have it's under contract to sell, and there's a closing statement that's put in there, even though nobody told us anything about it. I mean that's an actual example that happened, and I've made some trades because of it, made a little bit of money. I think I did a couple of videos about two properties that happened with so far, and I've only been doing this about 6 months on this site. So in any case, what are we looking for? So, okay, this is one. There's been a whole lot of discussion on in the Discord as far as like what's actually going on with the property. You can look in the Dropbox. Now, all the co-owners, so if it's a co-ownership property, I believe they now all have access to their own Dropboxes. I think that I know that if they request it, they can definitely have it, but I think they should have it just automatically at this point. And so if you see, if you're looking for documents and they're not in the Dropbox, the co-owner should be able to put them in there. And so we can see we've gotten a couple on this one. Things I want to look for every month is a mortgage statement. I think this loan is like sort of it's not like a private money lender, but it's not a regular bank. So this letter that okay, this is what you owe is nothing, and this is the balance. I mean, maybe that's the best we're going to get from that. That's a little worrisome. So I'm going to do some comparisons, right? So this is other property. It's 90 Madison. It's one that Earl owns, and you've heard me talk about him before. I think he's one of the better co-owners. When we look at his Dropbox, you can see, he's is this his? Yeah, there's stuff that's getting added in here very regularly. Why is this? Oh, but he uses folders a lot of times. So like his mortgage statements, okay, and even organized by year, right? And so you can see, okay, he's got every single mortgage statement. You go in there. Oh, where'd it go? You open it up, and it looks like an actual mortgage statement. You can see what was paid on this one, and that there's extra principal payments, just like we expected on that. Um, that's. Let's see. Let me back up. Um, that's more what I'm looking for on most of these. Maybe this is all we're going to get is that mortgage letter on that one. I don't really know. There should be a P&L that they put in here every month. You will get, I think all the properties get this transaction one. This is really, I think, generated by Lofty because we get these even on the non-co-owner ones. These are just in a horrible format to have any understanding of what's going on with the property by looking at these. So I really always look for, does the co-owner, if it's a co-ownership property, do they have a P&L? Does that P&L make sense, right? Like this is one of the things I want to look at. Like, okay, this is a 32 unit property. Um, insurance services, late fees, rental income. Like, is this all, we look at this compared to our rent roll that we have. Does this make sense? Um, make readies, we've got $2,200 in make readies in January, none in February. Cleaning and other maintenance minus $500. That's interesting, right? So that's one of the things I want to look at is like, do these actually make sense for what we know or what we're being told is going on with the property? Um, this is one, and I haven't followed it too closely, but I've noticed there's just been a lot of discussion on what's happening with the property versus what was expected initially. And so this is one of the things that you can look at, right? When they give you a P&L, does this match up with what your expectations are as far as if there's supposedly like a lot of turnover at this property or maybe some units that need to be released. I'm not exactly sure. But what you'd want to do is think about what you'd expect to be going on and compare it to what you see expenses for, right? And if we see massive expenses in a category that we didn't hear anything about, it's something that's going to trigger questions. Um, a P&L that I like much better, or and that one is perfectly fine format, but one I really like these ones that Earl does. He gives you notes, right? If something's going on. Oh, I just backed out of that. I need to get a new touchpad, or a new laptop, because the touchpad on this is ridiculous. He'll give you notes on certain things. He'll add stuff in here. Plenty of detail, and then also when he puts these out, he actually puts a little summary in the Discord as well, and so that's why I really like that. Even though I haven't, this is the only property of his that I've invested in. We just have different opinions on risk and maybe different appetite for risk, and we look at deals differently. But I think that the way he's actually running handling investment for another person, the way he's reporting it, the diligence that he puts into it is, I'd love it to become the standard. I realize most of the co-owners are probably never going to, give us the detail and attention that he does to all of these, but, it's not going to be universal, but I'd like to see a push for it to be moved closer to that. So that's, so I'm looking for that every time, right? I want to look at the P&L, see if it matches up with what I expected. Remember, this is not passive income; it's couch money, right? We make this money by sitting on the couch, but you can't just like buy one of these and just wait 3 years and check back in and see how you did. And unfortunately, you hear people or you see people in the Discord doing that all the time, right there. Oh, before I forget, please like and subscribe. In the description of this video, I have a link to not Lofty Discord, but just a generic one that I've set up for fractional real estate investing. We have quite a few people in there now talking about Lofty, Mogul, Ground Floor, a little bit of collab. Just fractional real estate investing in general. It's a good place where if you want to join us in discussing any of the stuff and you don't want to do it like in Lofty's Discord because you don't, one, either you don't want to, get in an argument with their super fans, or you don't want to make any of the employees that are mad at you. It's become a fun place for us to discuss a lot of these properties without having to like go in and directly offend co-owners and whatnot. But anyway, I just thought of that because I thought about the Discord. But so he's really active in putting that info in there. That's something I want to check somewhat regularly, right? Sometimes, um, there's updates that happen in there before they come out in either these drop boxes or that. So, okay, we said we want to look at the P&L each month. I want to look at, I also want to look at these transactions. As much as they're tough to look at, I try to figure, I try to go through and see, do these numbers make sense when I look at compared to how this is, right? Like, is the amount that he's saying he's sending to Lofty, does that show up on there? Um, I really hate looking at these transactions, but I think that another way to sort of have a checks and balance where you're seeing, is this info that we're getting, does it match up with that? And then of course you want to, as we're getting rent on these, look at, does it match up with what's flowing through, into the financials tab, right? Because this is where we find out what we're actually getting paid, and so you want it to match up with what we're looking at each month. Okay, let me close some of these so I don't just keep clicking on the wrong thing there. So yeah, like I said, mortgage statements, P&Ls. You can look at the insurance policies. Okay, we got our renewal certificate. You want to make sure when, on each property, normally these are paid once a year. You want to see that that is the case. If it's going to be paid by the mortgagee, or if it's going to be paid, um, if who pays it, right? And you want to verify that that's done. This is stuff like for the lofty properties, we can do that. Oh yeah, and then you want to make sure the property taxes are paid. So the brownfield one, it came up that some of the people said, hey, we don't think the taxes are actually paid on this. So most counties in the country, you can actually go onto the county website, and that's what I did here. And I pulled this up, and it does show. I just did this a little while ago. Taxes on this property are delinquent. The property is subject to a lien for the delinquent taxes. Um, that worries me a bit. Now you can pay these online, or you can actually mail it in. It's possible that they mailed it in and it just hasn't been received yet. There is a note on the county website that says they're running several business days behind in actually applying them. But it's already pretty late though, so I think that. I don't think they're so far behind that if they had been paid on time that this would be the case. So, but that's something I want to check, right? Right, because if these taxes don't end up getting paid, the property can be foreclosed on, and that's something that you want to know. Um, and in addition to that, you actually are paying a pretty steep fee for late payment as well. You pay a penalty and interest. That's what, on these, it is, P&I is not principal and interest, it's actually the penalty and interest on these, I believe. But it turns into real dollars, right? So it's not just some small penalty, for being late. So yeah, you want to be able to do that. Most places, you can check to see that that's done, online. I wonder if I'm curious if Earl puts it in his, yeah, so okay, he's putting his property tax bill in here too. Is this a paid one? Yeah, he puts a paid one in, right? I love to see this. Like, this is the right way. If I'm going to run a property for somebody else, and this is why I don't do it, right? Because this is the level of diligence that I don't want to have to do, right? I run my own stuff the way I run it, and I'm not going to be so, I wouldn't do it to this standard probably, and so I'm not going to do it, right? But I think that's the right thing to do, right? If you're gonna be responsible for someone else's investment dollars, you should be on top of that. And so yeah, he shows, he's got the city of Albany property tax bill when it was paid, uploads that. Um, I'd like to see that on everyone. And that's something, like I said, the property taxes you want to check maybe once a year, maybe once a quarter. You have to look at where you are. For insurance, you want to do that, typically once a year. your mortgage statements, I want to see that every single month. I want to know every month that that got paid, that it's not behind. That was one of the big ones that came up on Brownfield and where they got this letter. But there was people that had been asking about it for 3 months, saying, "Hey, we'd like to see a mortgage statement." And maybe this company is not in the habit of giving you monthly statements. I find that really hard to believe. So I'm a private mortgage lender myself. I have some outstanding loans that people owe me, and it's not a big business. It's not my primary business. It's not really even my secondary business, and I still manage to put um, a much more official looking statement together every month than that. So I can't imagine that a company that is lending millions of dollars to somebody can't provide us with a better looking mortgage statement each month. Um, so I don't know. I don't really know what's going on there, why that's the case, but it's something that if I'm invested in a property, I want to know every single month if there's a mortgage that is paid. Um, that's one of the things that I'd like to ask some of the other sites. I know at the moment I don't think Mogul is giving us any sort of indication of that. Um, The same thing with collab. I don't know about arrived, what they show you and what they don't, but I think that's especially with the some of the other platforms failing, and some of them not paying their debts and having other issues and going into foreclosure. It's a piece of due diligence that I don't really want to just leave up to the company. I want to be able to verify it every month, and if you know, I mean, it's one thing if they're doing a great job and we're getting paid every month. It's something that I'm not terribly concerned, right? I think that uh, at the same time, it's something that you can't just trust. I mean, you have to verify it at some point, and whether that is uh, for mortgage statements, it really is just something I want to see that every month. So it's something that I'm going to ask all the platforms that I'm invested in. I think that it is, especially like I said, with some of the failures of other platforms, it's really, just goes to show that like it's something that we have to know. Like if there is debt on the property, um, as an investor in that property, there's just no way that I can trust that that's being paid every single month because it is such a big expense. And so, for example, if that property is struggling but it's making some money, it's perfectly possible that they could send us, our dividend, but not be paying the mortgage just to sort of make it look like we're still making money. When in fact, we're at risk of losing the property, and I don't think that that's going on in any of the ones that I'm invested in at the moment. That's certainly something that could happen, and there's only one way to know. I guess another thing that you could do is regularly check public records because typically, before there's a foreclosure, or you have a list pendants filed or something like that. Um, but it'd just be much easier if you were provided mortgage statements by all the platforms on a regular basis. And again, that's sort of why I'm hoping to connect with all you other investors on these platforms is so that we can get together and figure out what is the standard, right? What should we expect from not just from other co-owners on Lofty, but from all the platforms, right? Like what sort of checks and balances, what sort of things should we be given on a monthly and yearly and quarterly basis to be comfortable in our investments. And I think those are certainly the minimums, right? Get it, the mortgage is paid, the insurance is paid. We're given a P&L that shows where the money's actually going. P&Ls, I don't think I'd mind if they were quarterly. I really don't like just getting something annually. Like when I had asked one of the platforms representatives at one point, they're like, "Oh, you get your tax statement every year. That tells you how you're doing, and you get your distribution every month." But those two things, like for example, I could be getting a distribution, and it could be coming out of the operating reserve, and that's the other thing too, right? Properties that do have an operating reserve, you want to look at that every month. Now, this one, the co-ownership properties, I don't really understand. The operating reserves don't work exactly. Um, they don't work in the same manner, I don't think. But they do still have these charts that they get in there, and I think they're mostly these get funded from trading in the property, or because every time that the property trades, some money comes from there, but they're not, the co-owners are responsible for some portion, so we don't end up having the same large reserves that we have on some of the legacy properties. But anyway, this is something that I look at all the time. I look at it for all the properties, whether they're co-ownership or legacy. Um, I actually made some decent trades in the last couple months by looking at these, because you can see for some of them, when the operating reserve hits a certain amount, it changes the cash flow significantly, because they have some rules that, until it hits a certain hurdle, they only pay out half or whatever it is. And so if you buy the month before that change happens, you can snag some pretty good deals that way. Those are really the things that I want to look at all the time. The other things that are, if you have a property and it's listed for sale, you want to actually go online and see what the listing looks like. This is one that I'm going to show you this, because it is one that it's kind of lagged. So let's see. Where did it go? Usually I have. Sorry about that. Oh, there we go. This Penhurst property has been listed for sale for the whole time I've owned it. We've dropped the price quite a few times, and I've noticed that whenever we vote to drop the price, there's always a big lag, several days between when we send that, result in and when they actually change it. But, you want to see, okay, what does our listing look like? Are they representing the property well? I mean, this one is just not a great looking property to begin with. This is one that I'm just buying because it's an incredible discount, but it's something that somebody's going to buy from us as a flip. But so you want to see what that looks like, right? And like, okay, this is, it's it's just a terrible looking property. They could have at least taken the trash out of this one. I think that whoever's buying a property like this, though, that's not, when you see the rest of the condition, I don't think that's going to change their mind. But if it was one that we thought was like really, a retail sale type of thing, you'd want to make sure that looks good. You want to make sure that they're changing the price every time that we vote on it, and whatnot. And so, depending on what's happening with your property, will change the things that you're looking for. But I look at those all the time. When you have one that's for sale, when it's under contract, I always keep checking back to see what the status is. I actually, figured out for some of them, sometimes the status change will let you know when it's just under contract, but like in some states, like in Texas, you'll know when it's under contract, and then you'll know when it's past the option period. And the sale is much more certain once you get past the option period than before. That's basically a period of time where the buyer gets to back out for any reason whatsoever, or for no reason at all, right? They don't have to give you a reason; they can just back out during that period. Um, so if I'm buying or selling into that property, around the sale time, which is one of the strategies we've talked about quite a bit, um, checking those sites and seeing that status. A lot of times we'll see that before we get any updates with Lofty. And so, that's again for legacy properties, not for co-ownership ones. Um, and so that's one more thing. So it's pretty much everything. I just wanted to make sure, I know we talk a whole bunch about things that you should look for before you buy, but I wanted to make sure that you realize that it's, due diligence is an ongoing thing, right? We want to be on top of our properties regularly. By doing this, it also helps us know, should I be buying more, right? Because, buying into these properties is not a one-time decision. There's some of these that I've bought a little piece of them every single month for the last 6 months, and there's some that I've bought and sold pretty regularly, depending on the prices moving. And you know, it's as things change, it should change the price that you're willing to pay. Um, if there's, if you see some negative change or some positive change or whatnot. So anyway, that's all I want to talk about for today. I think that I'm going to wrap it up and stop rambling. Sorry about that. Until next time, we'll keep making mistakes so that you don't have to.